Hello and welcome to another episode of Steelfur Speaks, one of the UK's leading flesh and blood podcasts, maybe even one of the world's leading flesh and blood podcasts. My name is Finbar, aka Steelfur, a flesh and blood player from the UK, though I am currently in Paris, in France, at a conference, hence being dressed up. No, the suit is entirely for you, my beloved audience. I would obviously dress up for all you guys all the time because it looks good to wear a suit. So yeah, I'm at this conference. This conference is unfortunately one of the reasons that I didn't attend the World Championships over the weekend, because I had to be here on Monday night and it would have been pretty tricky, but you know, the conference is going well and that's very good. I'm speaking tomorrow on stage because, of course, as some of you may or may not know, in my other life I am a research analyst. I do have to talk on stage and at conferences a lot of the time, and that is a fun place to be, and that is where I am very comfortable. I don't bring PowerPoints to my YouTube. I have done it once and it was very good, but never again, because it's just so much, it's just so much intensity when you've got a PowerPoint and you're doing the clickers. But, you know, maybe something big will happen at one point and I'll start to bring you guys the PowerPoint. So on today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the World Championships. We're going to talk about meta. We're going to talk about Dynasty, how excited I am for that assassin class. And we've got lots of interesting topics. So stay tuned. It's going to be great. Before we get into all of that, can we just talk for a minute? You know, if you haven't liked and subscribed this video, okay, all YouTubers do it. I have to do it too. You know, around 70% of the people who watch my channel don't actually subscribe to the channel. And, you know, that makes me sad. No, it makes you sad because you don't actually get the notifications when I go out with a new video. You don't get updates from me from my community page when I do post videos and photos when I'm traveling in places. You know, and you're not really engaging with me as well as you could. So if you like my content, like and subscribe. I do also have a Discord channel. It's not the most active place, but I do post in there regularly. And more people are joining all the time. So the link to that should be in the video description below. Feel free to join. You can ask me questions directly. You can ask me to come and play games with you. I am on Talishar a couple times a week, just chilling. And my streams, which were on Tuesdays from 7 to 9 p.m. UK time, will be coming back. As you can tell from this and the last video, I have just been at conferences for the past, 3 weeks. So I just haven't been, you know, at home on a Tuesday in a position where I could stream. I've also been playing a lot of World of Warcraft, Wrath of the Lich King. I am a massive WoW fan, so if you are into World of Warcraft, you can talk to me about it. I really enjoy playing that. I'm currently playing a rogue in Wrath of the Lich King, and I think I'm going to be playing a hunter in Dragonflight. I've got a trial in a Mythic guild to try and get back into Mythic raiding. So that will take up a bit of my time, but I'm still here for Fab. Still here to make Fab content. I've also been playing a lot of Marvel Snap. This is not a sponsored video. Really fun game by Ben Brode, the Hearthstone guy. Just really fun, really engaging, not too pay to win, pay to progress. Yeah, sure, but, you know, quite a fun game. Not as, you know, money grabbing as a lot of mobile games are. And just very, very fast, you know. I've been playing a lot of that. I will be doing Marvel Snap content because I think it's a really fun TCG and I really enjoy the design elements about it. And obviously I want to talk about the design elements of Marvel Snap and what makes it such an engaging proposition for everyone. All right, now, in the meantime, let's talk. So first, let's talk about Dynasty. Absolutely knocked it out of the park with Dynasty. One of the things I keep worrying about in Flesh and Blood is when is the power creep going to come in versus just adding other tools and making things interesting through alternative design. And that is one thing that I feel like Dynasty has really captured, in my opinion at least, is there are a lot of tools there for classes. Now, they may not all see play straight away because there are established archetypes and there are stronger versions of similar cards, but there are a lot of interesting potential options, and also it gives us a chance to see where these classes might expand to in the future, right? So currently all that Ward 1 stuff for Prism, for example, may not be what is good for Prism right now, but you can have this idea that in the future there may be a new illusionist hero that uses those abilities. Now, by giving us those cards initially and letting people respond to the design, maybe in a year's time or 2 years' time, depending on the development cycle, when the new Illusionist is being designed, they might incorporate some of that feedback into that design. Now, that being said, based on the cycles at which card games get developed, and I know that LSS, or at least I've heard previously that LSS is on like a 1.5 year cycle, it may be too late to add any feedback on these specific cards into the next set, because I have a feeling that whatever has been designed to work with, say, those Illusionist cards is already designed to work with an Illusionist in the pipeline. So if you're looking at those cards and saying, this is cool, but it doesn't make sense right now, remember, we will be getting another Illusionist. James White did say that we might have to wait 2 or 3 years for a new Prism, but that doesn't mean we have to wait 2 or 3 years for a new Illusionist. And based on all the signs we're seeing, it will be a Ward blue pitch focused Illusionist, and that is very exciting for us to see. So that is worth just keeping in mind and worth having a vision on, right? So that's kind of important, and that's kind of interesting. Same thing goes with Runeblades. We're seeing this new idea of pitching non-attacks and attacks to pay for more expensive things, which gives us the idea of a go tall Runeblade deck that likes to stack its pitch and then do stuff later on in the game, right? Including the book as well to generate rune chants for late game. Because think about it, if every turn you're stacking a non-attack and an attack action by pitching them, then at the end of the game your deck is going to be perfectly stacked 50-50. And all we really need is payoffs for that. We have some, Tome of the Arknight, but we need a few more payoffs for that. And then we're going to get into a real situation where you are hitting your pitch stack, and then you're saying, I know in every single card after this is attack, non-attack, and I'm going to abuse the hell out of that. And once we get in that sort of situation, we open up the way for a control Runeblade. They do have 2 quite good defense reactions, same as other classes who've gone more control of late. So really that Runeblade opens up the possibility and the potential of, a more long-term style. We saw Rhinar get a lot more support for the discard theme, which I know a lot of them are happy about, instead of the random rolling theme. If you discarded 6 or more power, get a resource. If you discard this card, put it on the bottom of the deck. If you discard 6 or more power, get +6 power up to like 13 strength. Some crazy discard synergy there. So that's really exciting to see. As well as Rock, a card that rewards you for pitching and discarding your hand to just add 7 attack if you have Go Again. It's really, really strong. Don't underestimate Rock. It's actually really, really strong. Awkward to set up without. Basically, you need a Tunic counter or an energy potion, and you need to pitch for a 1-cost card. So you need to pitch a blue for a 1-cost card and have a Tunic counter, or a blue for a 2-cost card and have an energy potion. But when you have that set up, you're basically getting 7 damage for free if you have Go Again. So it's actually really good. And of course, let's not forget what is going to be my new main, probably, because I've always loved that little attack, big attack style of Ira and early Katsu, control plus, mid-range attacks. So you may just find me playing Assassin, right? That class is literally every time I think Flesh and Blood, I understand where the design is going next. Right? Every time I think I understand where it's going next. And I wasn't surprised by the Brute cards, for example, with the discard synergy. And I wasn't surprised by the Wizard cards with the, able to build up arcane damage for the next turn. And then when you've done more arcane damage than is printed on the card, it has a bonus effect. That didn't surprise me. All of that kind of makes sense. All the warrior cards, I wasn't expecting... Well, I kind of was expecting something like piercing, so I'm not that surprised to see that either. And I'm not surprised that a lot of that went to warrior, right? Dorinthia is a warrior, piercing, fencing, that's all the Dorinthia thing. And the idea that warriors can hit with the swords in the right places that go through the armor. All of this kind of stuff is kind of within my expected wheelhouse. And then we have the Prism, the Illusionist stuff, where they've just given you this really powerful aura, but it has Ward 1. I wasn't expecting that. That was really surprising. The Ranger aim counter stuff I wasn't expecting, but that's fairly, blasé. It's just they were losing track of whether stuff had been turned face up one turn or the next turn, so they kind of made a counter to put it on. James said that in the Q&A. And then we have Assassin. And I'm like, if you told me that they were going to print a class whose core mechanic was I get to look at the top card of your deck every turn and choose whether you get it, I would have been like, no, that's crazy. That's really overpowered, right? But somehow they've managed to do it in a way where the cost between the weapons and the fact that contracts don't have to go again means that it feels powerful, but it doesn't feel oppressive. And they've created this new niche, which I didn't even see coming out of this new class. And I think that's brilliant. As well as the contract mechanic, the idea that I'm hunting through my opponent's deck for certain cards feels so thematic and so powerful as well without being overpowered in the scheme. Because remember that Arachne or whatever has only had 42 cards, I think 42, 46 cards, and will probably be an assassin included in the next set, right? I fully expect that this is a preview class for the next set where they will get additional support, and then they will be on the level of illusionist, basically, where they will have had a supplemental set and a main set, but not maybe on the level of, well, the two illusionists are so different, they'll probably be on the same level as illusionists, right? Because Dromai and Prism are so different that really all they have in common is this shared pool of cards from Everfest. And also, now the new shared pool of cards from Dynasty, but the Dynasty cards don't work super well with either of them. That's fine. That's a different discussion. But my point is, Arachne will be on the same level as Illusionist and probably have a lot more support for a different level of play. Or we get another assassin that uses Arachne's cards, but in a different way. And remember that Arachne, we've heard it was originally designed to be an Arcane Rising. He's been included because he's a favorite of everyone. We don't know whether he was included for the flavor reasons, because they just really wanted him in the game, or for balance reasons, because they thought that he would be good in the game. I personally feel like they had this slot and they just wanted to put him in, so they put him in. And maybe there was a possibility we could have got like merchant support, but PvE isn't ready enough yet, or some other kind of support, but they decided to go with this one instead. But I do fully expect we will get a fully fleshed out assassin in the next draft set, which I'm just betting at this point will be Metrics and the Pitch, and Metrics and the Pits. That's just where I'm going, personally. They could subvert. It could be, a different kind of assassin, like a Savage Lands assassin or something. I don't know. But I do expect we will get a full assassin in the near future. Now, but so the design is just really, really good. It's really control-y without being oppressive. Your opponent obviously can block very easily, but you have these really good defense reactions. But those turns cost a lot of cards from your hand, so you can't block as well. So you kind of have to choose between turns where you're pushing and going for your contracts and turns where you're blocking more. And it is a really good fatigue deck, which plays a fatigue game style, but very engaged fatigue. It's not like old Tim in Blitz, where you can just block everything and make your opponent just get ground to dust. You're constantly attacking, probing for weaknesses, and getting the fatigue through an active and engaged form of gameplay, which is why it's so fantastic, right? So, friendship ended with Katsu. Friendship started with Arachne, right? Not that I've played Katsu in ages, because I've been playing Old Tim, and I played Old Tim at Nats, but Katsu's got some really fun support in the Crouching Tigers as well. I'm not going to go into that in that video. I'm going to do a whole thing on how fun those are. But it is worth just remembering that, some classes have got some really fun support in this set, and the new class is really well designed. And every time we think we know where LSS is going to go with design for Flesh and Blood, they surprise us by finding a new axis to play the game within what is essentially a very simple core framework, right, of attacking, card draw, etc., etc. And, eventually they may restart recycling ideas, but for now they're coming up with lots and lots of very interesting variations on that core mechanic, and that is fantastic. I love Assassin. I'm really happy that that's come in. When I originally saw it, I was kind of like, it should just be a Shadow Ninja, and I've said this before, the only problem I have with Assassin is that I feel like Assassin for me as a theme archetype feels like just a type of ninja, right? Because ninjas are assassins, ninjas are thieves, ninjas are rogues. For me, all of that could just be bundled into the ninja class. Balance-wise, obviously, that doesn't work, because imagine having Contract combined with loads of 0-for-4s with Go Again, right? Oh, I attack, and then I do a Contract, and you've already taken 12 damage, and do you block? I mean, it's a bit crazy. So I understand balance-wise, and I was a bit disappointed that thematically we have these two classes that, in my head, are very, very close in terms of like feel and in terms of who they appeal to. You know, come out of the shadows, attack with some daggers, go back to the shadows. That's a ninja, that's a rogue, that's an assassin across all fantasy archetypes. So, you know, for me, that feels like a wasted slot in terms of thematically. I don't feel like it fleshes out the world as well as adding something like a cleric who's a necromancer, or a cleric who's a a priest, or a druid, or a shaman, or any of those other fantasy archetypes that are just significantly different in terms of theme, art, feeling. I look at a lot of the assassin cards, and I think this could very much art-wise be a ninja card, right? So that's the only part of the class that bothers me, is just that I feel like we're getting something that art-wise, thematically-wise, is very close to ninja, but I understand that why it needs to be a separate thing from ninja, because the two together would be very, very hard to balance. But, if you had made a shadow ninja and just made some restrictions on how its ability worked so that people didn't want to play the zero cost cards and things like that. But it's much better to just silo it away, because one is a go wide hero, the other is a control aggro hero. So, you want to keep them separate, and that makes sense. But that's the only drawback I have about Assassin, is that I would prefer if thematically it wasn't Assassin, if it was just something else, right? And that's fine. That's fine. It's perfectly fine. So let's talk about Worlds. Firstly, huge congratulations to Michael Hamilton, Chris Steelfur, all of the people who made the top 8. You're all fantastic Flesh and Blood players. I was watching the stream. I stayed up way too late on a Sunday night. I watched it most of Saturday as well. There were some fantastic games played across every single format. It was an amazing event, and I could feel how excited people were, and just really great to watch some amazing Flesh and Blood. And also just delighted to see the different style of heroes making it into the top 8. Dromai made it into the top 8, which is just, kind of mad to think about, and then got the worst pairings that they could have got in the top 8 bracket. But that is what it is. And we just saw some really, really good, clean play as well. I want to appreciate that, because, we have had problems with misplays, mistriggers, a little bit of cheating. We have had those kind of problems at high-level Flesh and Blood in the past. And we got through the World Championships, and I don't remember. I think I saw one mistrigger, which was a Piercing Reality on a Herald of Erudition. But I think the gameplay quality has gone up so much and was just so clean across the entire thing, that I just have to say, to everyone who played on stream, who I saw, well done. That's to keep that level of quality up across that much time is and when you're that tired and playing that high stakes, is difficult. So congratulations, you did really well. And you know what, it looked like a fantastic event from home, and I feel like the stream was good. I have heard people say, the commentators made mistakes. Commentators make mistakes. That is how it goes. You're in the moment, the adrenaline's pumping, you're in front of 3,000 people, you're going to say things wrong, you're going to get things wrong, you're going to misread a card, things go wrong. Don't focus too much on commentators making mistakes. Chat loves to do it. I was doing it as well. I was joining in, being like, oh, you got that wrong. But that's just fun. That's just engagement. Not actually here to pull anyone down, right? We're here to build people up. And the commentators did a really good job. They made things quite engaged. I know some people weren't as happy with, some of the commentators didn't know the game as well as they would have hoped. And I know it became much more apparent when Brendan from Arsenal Pass came on, because he is so into the game and calling, predicting plays and calling Arsenal stuff and things like that. It is good to have him on there for difficult games and for complicated games. But, I will say that, it is important to have a mix of the two types of personalities on any sort of cast like that, because, we've definitely seen, I know when Kugane and myself did Krakow, we are both more analytical players, and that stream starts to go into, well, he's going to do this. No, I think he's going to do this. Whereas you have people who can bring a lot more energy and be a lot more hype and be a lot more, like, I'm just going to wear a full US flag suit and US flag shades and just look awesome and be like, hey, isn't this amazing? USA is going to win. So you need a mix, but I will say that just, those casters will learn the game to that level eventually. They are building up their, experience portfolio with Flesh and Blood. They can't go into it in as much detail as Brendan can, but Brendan was training to win the world championships, right? It is what it is. As long as you had a good time and the streamers kept you entertained, then that's all that really matters. The only other comment was that someone said they thought that the streamers were a bit too US biased, and they are from North America. They are from the US. They should be excited to see their country win. But more attention paid to non-US players might be a good idea as well. I don't know if I really necessarily agree with that, but I know they definitely were leaning into one or two players a lot. But you have to understand that that creation of a player-driven narrative is important. Anyone who tuned into the League of Legends World Finals, a much, much bigger esports competitive thing with casting, the entire thing that they were doing there is talking about players, Faker, Chovy, all these people, building them up in their own reputations, talking about their records, how well they did, and putting people against each other. And Flesh and Blood is trying to get a bit of that energy, right? And they're trying to get a bit of that energy, not just for now, but also for next year, right? When Michael Hamilton comes up against Daniel Rotowski in the final again, and everyone's like, oh, they played off last year. These are two of the best people at the game. Who's going to win, right? We're trying to get that level of energy into the game where there are names who you want to see win and you start to root for and you follow. And those people become kind of like ambassadors for Flesh and Blood, right? And, let's talk about how great an ambassador for Flesh and Blood someone like Christopher Reali, who I understand helped set up loads of his own scene and is always there for new players, and Michael Hamilton, who's a really, I think I've met him once, but he's really calm, collected, friendly guy, and how much of a really good ambassadorship it is for Flesh and Blood when the first thing that the person who's just realized they've lost £200,000 and has lost the finals of the World Championships to their opponent, the first thing he does is smile, nod, laugh a bit, fist bump his opponent and say, congratulations, that was fantastic. Can we talk about how amazing for Flesh and Blood that final was and the responses of those players when they were winning or losing in those games? So sportsmanship to the maximum. And that's why these player-driven narratives are so good. So when these people come up again, when they perform again, we can root for them. How many people were more engaged in the standings because they were going to check and see how Pablo Pintor or Matt Fawkes were doing? Because they had already seen them do well, they recognized their name, and they wanted to know how well are those people doing again, right? How many people were more engaged by that dialogue? And then when they didn't do well, you were shocked, you were sad, because you invested time in those people. So that's very much, when you hear people say these names a lot, they are trying to create a Flesh and Blood player-driven narrative. And that is very, very important for engaging people in the game, but also engaging people in the game who aren't necessarily 100% hardcore into the game. You need people to have these names who they remember, even if you're a casual player, so that when they come back to the next tournament, they're like, oh, that guy, I saw that guy before. They don't know him personally. They're not going to show up to these Pro Tours and these World Championships, but they might watch the game every now and then, play Blitz every now and then, watch the World Championship if the casting is accessible and fun, and remember those names and carry them with them to the next tournament where things are going to be super exciting because they are fully engaged and they remember players that they've seen before. All of that's pretty fun. So, I'm not going to go into, because people have said various different things about the casting. I feel like it was actually very, very good. It was very, very engaging. Were there issues? There's always issues. Let's not deal with that. And, generally everyone seemed like they had a really good time. So the people at home also had a good time. We had 3,100 people, I think was the highest number, watching that stream concurrently, which is double PT1. In terms of viewership, literally double. I think we had 1,400 at PT1. We had 3,100 at PT2. So the game is growing. More people are watching it. And more importantly, we had loads of people in the chat saying, I've never tried this game. What's the best way to get in? This looks fun. How much are they playing for? Wow, that's amazing. This World Championships is really cool. We had loads of people who weren't super engaged with Fab, or more casual players, watching the stream and feeling like they were part of the community and thinking about maybe they should get into the game, right? The stream was 100% a success that way, right? And it continues to be reinforced, right? So that Flesh and Blood is a game that is easy to get into. Professor does videos about it. People do videos about it. I obviously have my own hero overview, which I'm in the process of remaking because we've had a few sets go by, which is basically a 20-minute video that spends 2 minutes on every single hero in the game telling you, you know, why to play them and why they're fun and how their deck plays, right? And that video still gets like 500-600 views a month, every single month consistently. And I mean, I know that's not a lot for bigger channels, but for me, I think that's pretty good. And that just shows that there are 500 or 600 people who are searching, you know, Flesh and Blood new player guide and finding a video that gives them an idea of how to play all these different heroes and getting interested in the game. So, you know, the stream did that purpose in that way, and that was very, very good to see. And it's kind of just reinforced by personalities like the Professor coming into the game and bringing his like really player-friendly attitude in terms of this is the cheapest way to get into the game, this is why you should get into the game, and calling, you know, the companies out when they do things that aren't player-friendly and things like that. So World's fantastic, casting fantastic. I do want to touch briefly on some of the negative things. I'm sure some of these are outside of LSS's control or only became apparent when they came into the venue. They are still quite a new events company. But people have been telling me that Worlds was held in a tent. I looked at it. It looks like it was a tent. They've said it was very cold on some of the mornings. That's not great, obviously, when you're trying to, you know, keep warm. Most of the complaints I have heard have focused around the bathrooms. They were apparently outside. They were trailers. They weren't actual bathrooms. There weren't enough of them. Half of them broke as the tournament went on. As someone who has IBS, my bowel... Yeah, anyway, look up IBS. I'm not going to go into details on it now. But, you know, my stomach is not always great. So one of the things that I'm very keenly aware of when I go to card game tournaments is whether or not the bathrooms are good, unfortunately. And I will say, you know, at Lille, I felt like they were serviceable. At some of the callings, they've been a bit hit and miss. There just haven't been enough of them made available for the number of people that we were bringing into the hall, and there've been big queues and stuff like that, which isn't great. But if half of them break, that's really bad. So, I don't know, more care in choosing venues. I know LSS are probably still quite budget constrained in terms of where they hold venues, but a lot of people have said that, you know, the venue for New Jersey was actually better than the venue for Worlds. The venue for Lille was probably better. I've also heard that the player banquet this time wasn't as good or to as high a standard. I know that in Lille we had like food stations. It was really great. Apparently most of it this time was pizza, and they also kind of oversold it because before it used to just be everyone who was qualified for the PT could come and +1s. And then after a certain point, everyone else was allowed to get in. But I think this time they let qualified Worlds players and people who bought a specific gold pass or something get in. So there was just a lot more people than there were previously, which is good because it's Worlds and it should be a massive celebration. But obviously you need to put a bit of work into making sure there's enough food and people at the door to get all the people in, enough space for everyone, so that, or maybe give people like assigned time slots and things. But so that's kind of like a criticism. The food wasn't as good as it has been at previous events, which felt like a bit of a step down because it's the World Championships, and obviously we expect it to be better. In terms of other criticism, the only other thing I really want to flag, because this is kind of comes home to me as a player and what I really expect. Well, I guess it's kind of two things, right? The first thing is communication at the event. So, you know, I have heard from a few people, more than a few people actually, that there were lots of things happening at the event that they just did not know were happening. So in terms of raffles organised by LSS, giveaways being organised by artists, James White signing mats for people who queued up to see him. No one knew about that, really, at least on the first day. And okay, you know, kudos to James White. He signed mats for like 3 days, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and gave away tons of playmats as well. You know, that's really fantastic that he made himself available to the community in that way. But I think that a lot of people who you know, a lot of people didn't have time to queue, and then didn't know he was giving away this regicide playmat as well, so then felt like they were let down. Channel Fireball selling the mats online, the world mats and all the special mats. A lot of people didn't know about that. They thought they'd be able to go and buy them in person. So it seems like there were a lot of just communication issues that weren't really, you know, handled very well. A lot of sort of, you know, things going wrong just where people didn't know that things were going to happen a certain way. You know, most large events have a schedule or an agenda just posted on a wall that tells people everything that's going on, or a little booklet that tells people where to go and what's going to happen, or even just a web page. But it feels like that was kind of missing. So that would be, I guess, a recommendation for a large event in the future is if you're doing this kind of thing, you know, make sure that everyone knows all of the activities that are happening. You know, we had the same thing at Lille where there was a raffle to get in for a alpha draft, and most of the people I know didn't know that there was the raffle, and some of them who did, basically because they were playing in all the main events, they didn't get prize tickets, and because they didn't get prize tickets, they couldn't enter the raffle for the alpha draft. Now this brings us to the last thing I want to talk about, which is, again and again it keeps coming up, but battle hardens at large events need to scale prizes based on the number of participants, right? It's that simple, okay? There is a battle hardened at Worlds. All the LSS team are there. James White is there. Channel Fireball are all there. There's tons of promos on the prize wall. There's tons of product kicking around. And you are running a 340-person tournament, charging $40 entry ahead. Someone could do the quick maths on that, but I think it's 320 by 40 is like 12,000, I think. Anyway, my point is, it's a lot of money, right? And the prizes are top 8 only. If you go 8-1, you get $125. If you go anything worse than 8-1, that was a nice £40. Thank you for coming, right? I just can't. It's just not enough. It's just not enough. Like, I get higher tier prizes. I get prizes for people who win a lot. I get, you know, rewarding the best with something. I'm not saying that everyone deserves to get a prize, but I will remind you that there is a wall full of tokens that LSS can print incredibly cheaply that don't really need to hold a huge amount of monetary value, and they have tons of product as well, which they're going to have to ship back if they don't give away. Battle hardens just need to be more generous. I just don't care. It is the casual third day event, second day event for people who couldn't do very well in the main event, and asking them for $40 and then saying, well, you lost one game, so actually you don't get anything, not even tickets. Even if you go undefeated after you lose the first 2 games, or if you lose 2 games at some point, so you go 6 or 7-2 in a 9-round battle hardened, you get nothing. Right? To me, that just doesn't seem okay. And I don't care if it's a promo or some packs of the latest set. Like, imagine if everyone who'd gotten... what if you got a pack of Dynasty for every win you got in the Battle Hardened? Right. 1 pack. It's about, what? You know, $1 for LSS per pack or something at just, I don't know, the price of distribution. But my point is, if you won 7 games, you'd have 7 Dynasty packs. Buy them off your mates, and then you do, you know, you can't do a draft, but you know what I mean, right? Anything, just some sort of scalable prize for battle hardens, because you're going to have an 80-person battle hardened and only give prizes to 8 people. You're going to have a 326-person battle hardened, only give prizes to 8 people. That just seems like not enough. So, yeah. I don't want to talk anymore about Worlds because I think I've said enough. As I've said, fantastic event, so much to do, so much that was great about it, and I've heard lots of really, really good stories. I do just want to, because I'm an honest channel, and you guys know that, and my audience appreciates that honesty. I do just want to talk about those areas where things need to improve, to be honest, and where there is friction, and yeah, really just go into it in that level. But obviously I am being constructive, and remember that if you are going to talk in the comments of this video or about this video in the channel, all I ask from you is that you also be constructive, right? I don't really want to entertain, and you'll notice in my comments I don't really respond to rants. with people just complaining. So if you're going to bring suggestions, positive feedback, ways that LSS can improve, or suggestions for how they can do things differently, then please do respond in the video. I'll be happy to listen to any suggestions and tweet them at relevant people, because I tweet now. But if you're just going to come and rant, then I'm not the channel for you guys, and that's okay. So yeah, really good, really interesting video. I really can't wait to... You know, I haven't been playing as much Flesh and Blood recently just because it's good to have a break. My next competitive tournament is in January, but Dynasty is coming out. I'm super excited for Arachne. I am a bit worried how much the cold foil equipment legendary is going to cost me, because it seems like a lot of people want that, but I'll have to get it, you know, somewhere. You know. And I'm kind of excited to mess around a bit with Katsu. That's Katsu with a C, right? Katsu with a C. I can do this better. No, I can't do it better. Anyway, Katsu with a C, because he's playing all the couching tigers, you know. And, yeah, other than that, I don't know. This was Steelfur Speaks. I guess I need to start a new playlist called Steelfur Snaps for my Marvel Snap content. But that'll be coming when it comes. Like, for context, I've played like 400 games. I was rank 82. Until the season reset yesterday. I was trying to get up to Infinity. I'm at collection level 1020 or something. It's a really fun game. Don't take it too seriously. Don't give them money unless you're enjoying yourself. If you do, then try not to spend more money than you would on a Hearthstone, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, Flesh and Blood's in a really good place. It just keeps... Like, this is just off the... Like, I obviously don't... You guys know I don't have a script, like, for this. I just have points and just talk to them. That's, you know, as an analyst, that's kind of what I do. But, you know, just to final thoughts to wrap up is just how fantastic of a place Flesh and Blood is in. Like, we have so many more players, so many more people invested in the game, you know, partly helped by the fact that Magic is pissing everyone off right now, but loads of people are trying the game for the first time, realizing it's fantastic. And like, to bring all of this back to the heart of it, LSS continue to add elements and designs to the game that are inherently just fascinating from, you know, a card game design perspective, from a making use of the... Because I always worried, my biggest worry about Flesh and Blood was that the core mechanics were so simple that it would become difficult to make innovative new decks, right? That explored new areas without just basically feeling the same. You know, like Dorinthia feels the same as... I'm trying to think of a good example, but... it's getting late, so I'm not going to do it. But basically, there are some classes that, you know, like Guardian and Fatigue Prism, or, you know, classes that just do big attacks, like Ninja and Mechanologist boost dash, for example, that just go wide and just keep going and going, or Chain and Ninja, for example, that just keep going and going and going, right? So, you know, ultimately, the strategies that are good in this game are either here are tons of attacks that you have to block, or I can consistently block and deal damage to you in return, right? At a very basic level, those are the axes of attack and defense in the game. And it's always interesting to me to ask the questions as to where the game can go. And I thought with Prism, you know, that's one permanence, is one place the game could go. And I was really surprised then by Jeremiah's Dragons and how those interacted with the game. I think that's really interesting. And then they added this concept of like Ward 1 permanence that you have to block, and if you take any damage, they die. And it's going to be really interesting to see how those get fleshed out. And then they put in this whole deck interaction class in Arachne, and I'm just like, okay, yeah. So now I'm like, and I've never said that I'm a know-it-all or I know like everywhere that Fab is going to go, but I do, you know, I invest a decent amount of time thinking about this game, so I would like to think that I do have a good idea of possibilities and places where this game could go in terms of design archetypes. And I always enjoy when I'm surprised, because I've obviously spent a lot of time thinking about it, and it just kind of proves to me that the development potential of the game and the development team who are making the game are very engaged, very creative, and really are testing the limits of their system and finding ways to make it fun and interactive. Because Fatigue was not a good, fun, interactive game strategy until they printed Arachne. And now suddenly Fatigue is this aggressive attack strategy that looks to exploit weaknesses and push through damage, and also fatigue your opponent. And the two of those, like, I didn't think that engaging plus fatigue was a thing, and now it is. Right, so, you know, Flesh and Blood is in a fantastic place. The design keeps getting better and better. More and more people are trying it. If you've listened to 40 minutes of this video, you have already played the game. I don't need to sell it to you. But I feel like I want to leave you with that really positive note just to take away from this episode. I still love it, even though I'm, you know, I am and I have been on a bit of a break since Leal. You know, just playing Warcraft and spending more time with my girlfriend and all of that kind of stuff, just having time for you know, chores and work and travel and things like that. So but it is still fantastic, and it is still showing more and more and surprising me more and more. If you would like more of suited Steelfur, you can request it. I'm currently about to buy a green screen for a project that I'm working on, involving the new player hero guide. I could do that entire series in a suit. I bought this new suit. It's very nice. I quite like it. So yeah, if that's of interest to you, let me know. I'm going to go back to my conference. So have a good